everyone. It's actually a little after 2. That clock is slow. I want to say thank you to everyone who came. This is my last rodeo. And David Harcourt is around here somewhere. You're going to be seeing a lot of him next year, in the back row, no less. So I just want to say we're 35 years old this year. And EEE is still going strong, and that's thanks to every single person here and the board and everyone. And thank you. Oh, you're welcome. An old friend. So I want to tell you a little bit about Sara and then Emmanuel. Sara Mellinger has over 2 decades of experience in B2B, that's business to business technology, spanning engineering, marketing, and executive roles. She joined OnLogic in 2017 and led the global marketing team. In 2024, she shifted her focus to AI, launching an AI consulting offering and driving AI adoption within OnLogic. Prior to OnLogic, Sara worked for IBM. She's passionate about empowerment, communication, and empathy. These are muscles she exercises daily, whether interacting with customers, colleagues, or her loving family of 2 teenagers, an incredibly supportive husband, and an adorable Labrador retriever whom my granddaughter adores. A little about Emmanuel. Emmanuel Capitaine is OnLogic Director of Infrastructure and Security. Emmanuel has 20 years of experience auditing and securing complex ecosystems around the world for critical infrastructure sectors. As a transformational leader, Emmanuel empowers organizations to ensure business continuity by identifying and mitigating cybersecurity risks. Emmanuel is currently leading the STORM program, which focuses on securing the edge for OnLogic customers. Please give a warm welcome to Sara and Emmanuel.
Thank you so much, Carol. First, sound check. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. Travis, I also forgot to ask, can I walk anywhere or am I bound? Fabulous. Good. I like to move. Yeah, I might trip. That's the problem. Wonderful. Well, first, congratulations on your 35 years. That's an incredible milestone. And I'm excited to be here, honored to be here as you're wrapping up your season with this talk today. So before we jump in, I would just love to get to know all of you as our audience a little bit better with a quick show of hands on some questions. So first, who has lived in Vermont for at least 20 years? All right, so we have a crew that is familiar with the business and cultural landscape of our phenomenal state. I've also been here for 25 years. And how many folks have worked at some point in their life in the technology sector? All right, well, it's at least a quarter, maybe a third. That's good to know. And then regardless if you've worked in the technology sector, how many of you would consider yourself technology savvy? Hey, we still got half. Okay, great. So these are the context I wanted to have as I'm taking you through this. I'm going to try to talk in both languages here on a technical level, but also on a very practical level, hoping to provide some analogies of what we do at OnLogic, and specifically about artificial intelligence are the areas I'll be talking about, and then handing it over to Emmanuel for security governance in the cybersecurity world. So that was helpful for me. So let's get going. So what I would love to talk about in this time, first I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what industrial computing is, because that is the core business of OnLogic. Then I'll tell you a little bit about our organization, and then talk about one of our major growth drivers right now, artificial intelligence, or AI. Emmanuel will talk security, and then we'll have time for some Q&A. So, show of hands again. Who knows what an industrial computer is? Oh, great. Oh, well, your son works there. That doesn't count. So an industrial computer, you could think about it, is kind of like the tough, armored cousin of a typical computer that you would interact with, have on your desk at home or at your prior desk at work. And basically, it is designed to thrive in harsh environments where typical computers would fail. So if you think about it, if it's exposed to wide temperature ranges, so if it's in an industrial setting next to an industrial oven, which gets very hot, or if it is in an enclosure out in the desert controlling solar panels, it's going to be extremely hot during the day and extremely cold at night. A typical computer is likely to freeze up and not work very well and shut down. And the last thing you want to do is have to disposition someone out in the desert hours away to fix this computer. So it survives in these harsh environments, and it's reliable and will function long term without a lot of maintenance, so that it could work in these industrial environments. Other conditions that it could be subjected to are shock and vibration. So I don't know if you've ever shaken a laptop, usually it'll freeze up and stop working. So we have systems that are in subway cars, for example, powering video surveillance cameras on those cars. And so with all of those turns and vibration, it still continuously runs. Contaminants are another great challenge. We had a customer years ago. They're a cabinet manufacturer. So if you picture yourself in their manufacturing environment, there's so much sawdust. They used to have somebody had to go around and open up the computers and vacuum them out, I think on a weekly basis. Otherwise, they wouldn't run because the fans were continually sucking in all that sawdust. So our solutions, many of them don't even have fans and are completely enclosed so that those contaminants don't get in. So that's our business. That's our core product. Not all industrial computers are orange, but ours are. That's kind of our brand claim to fame. And you can see, too, they're not very big. I mean, they can be larger than this, but a lot of them, that is a real-sized hand there, that they have to fit in particular environments and fit right on the factory floor or in an enclosure outside, so they can't be these massive machines. So now who knows what an industrial computer is? Yes. Okay, great. Next quiz. Who understands what cloud computing is? All right. Sort of, yep. How about edge computing? That doesn't surprise you. So they are the yin and the yang for each other. So cloud computing is basically a massive cluster. It's a data center with tons and tons of computers, tons of big servers that are running vast amount of computation. So think about, these are often run by Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and most of what you do daily does pass through the cloud. So if you're working in your email, or if you have a Google Drive, or even if you're streaming Netflix, like all of these things are often, coming from very far away into a concentrated data center. So think of it, a good analogy is an electric utility. So there's an electric utility that's where we get our electricity from, and that's this one big plant, and it goes out to all the houses and the businesses. Now picture having a generator in your house. You are now providing all that electricity locally right where you need it. That generator is at the edge. So that is all edge. Edge is a place. So an edge computer is located right next to where the data processing and capturing is happening. So for example, an autonomous vehicle is a great example of this. There's compute power in an autonomous vehicle. So if you're in this vehicle and it's driving on its own, it has a bunch of sensors, and this sensor will automatically detect, there's an object in the road. If it relied on cloud computing, it would send that message, object in the road, to the cloud, which would go to a far, far, far away server farm. It would analyze that signature, say, object equals stop, brake, send that message back to the car, brake, and then hits the brake. Exactly. And you hit the windshield is what we heard. So, and now the reality is that does happen fast. I mean, it's probably a second or two that it takes for that to happen. But in this instance, that second or two could be life or death. And so instead, that compute power, that decision, that processing the data to say, ooh, this means there's something there, and therefore I should brake, is done locally right in the car at the edge to do the action. So there's different, do you need that speed when you're sending an email? No, you can wait a second before you hit send before it goes out. And so there's use cases for both. There's benefits to cloud and edge computing. They often work together. So for example, in a factory, you might have a system, one of our computers in the factory that is running a critical path in your operations, but it will send a bunch of data at the end of the day to the server, to the cloud, to do some additional analytics, to give you some insights, but not to run the operation right then and there when it needs to detect a problem and trigger an action. Okay, so now, everyone knows about the edge? Yes. Okay, now you're ready to hear about OnLogic. So OnLogic, we are a global industrial computer manufacturer who specializes in making computers for the edge. So that's why most people don't know about us, because we're not making computers that are on your desk at home or in the office. They're often behind the scenes, so the unsung heroes running a lot of industrial processes. So we've been around since 2003, and we started out here in Vermont, but you can see we have a very global footprint. We have manufacturing and fulfillment operations both here in Vermont for the US, and then in the Netherlands, which basically our two biggest markets are North America and Europe. But we also have other facilities in Malaysia to help with supply chain and engineering, and a robust team down in North Carolina as well that runs a mix of engineering and business functions. And so, we've been growing pretty rapidly over the past 20 plus years. We've surpassed the 750,000 systems sold, which is pretty cool. And our systems are run and are used in so many different countries throughout the world. So there's a lot of regulatory certification that we've had to do in order to fulfill that. But Vermont is our global headquarters. Of our 275 plus employees that we have, I'd say there's probably around 150 here at our headquarters, which I will also talk about. You've probably noticed is a new building that went up just down the road here in South Burlington. So we were super thrilled to move in there at the beginning of last year. And it is a massive facility. It's 150,000 square feet. And the intention there is we're here to grow, right? Like we are here to continue to grow our operations here in Vermont, which I'm very excited about. And we did that growth, though, with a mind to sustainability. There are a lot of efforts. There's solar power, geothermal. We have electric vehicle chargers in the parking lot. So there was a mind to sustainable building and also be able to sustainably grow our presence and stay here in Vermont. And then with that, too, we were able to modularly build our manufacturing capabilities so that it works for us now, but it will work for us in the future, too, for quite a few years to come. And so our product portfolio, we like to say we have solutions for every part of the edge. And it's a variety of different computers. The first two up there, the industrial and rugged, are just flexes on the needs of the customer, whether or not they have that wide temperature environment or shock and vibrations, those types of things. We have ones, panel PCs, that actually has a screen, so that's a touch screen that's often in a manufacturing environment to run equipment, or perhaps in a retail environment. Think about menu boards at restaurants and things like that. So all of those things are fair game. And then edge servers is like our kind of dip, like getting a little bit closer to the cloud side, but nowhere near that scale, but able to process a lot more information. Then on top of our core business there, which is our industrial compute, we do have a number of services as well. So we can do custom engineering. If we don't have what you need from a product standpoint, we could help to modify it to fit your needs. We can help folks use our computers for artificial intelligence use cases, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then we can also help them secure their environments, which Emmanuel will talk about too. And again, they're really everywhere, which is kind of cool. So our customers are from a broad array of industries. The vast majority of them are in manufacturing, logistics, warehouses, in the energy market. But you can see them pretty much everywhere in the world. All right, so that's on logic. So now I'll talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and basically where you can see that. So I'll do a little definition piece. Again, show of hands if you understand artificial intelligence. I love the mix of the hands going up and the chuckles that are happening. Yeah, I mean, I am in this field and I learn something new every day. So, this is an area that is rapidly changing. The capabilities literally are changing daily on what this technology can do. So to just make sure we have a little bit of a common language here as I go through this. Artificial intelligence is basically the overall field that's dedicated to making machines or software that can learn and reason and make decisions. It's not programming a certain set of instructions, but it can develop and grow over time. And so machine learning is how it does that. So machine learning is basically the learning engine. And so think of it, again, you don't have to give it specific instructions. It can discern patterns to then make assumptions from that. So it's kind of like how we learn. So think about if you have a little kid and you want to teach them what a dog is. You can maybe describe what a dog is like with the tail and the soft ears, and they could be this big or that big and these different colors. You could look at pictures of a couple of different breeds. And then that child is going to recognize that and be able to make those connections. So when you start showing them pictures of an elephant, a lion, a dog, even if it's a breed of dog that looks nothing like the picture you showed them previously, they're going to say, oh, that's a dog, because of all these different patterns that we've discussed. So that's what machine learning does. You don't have to give it a full rule book of instructions. You give it a training set of data that it can then learn on and make those inferences so that it can know things that weren't intentionally taught to it. Computer vision, so this is an application that is basically allows artificial intelligence to work on visual things like videos and pictures instead of just numbers and words. So you can think of computer vision as the eyes of artificial intelligence. And if computer vision is the eyes, natural language processing are the ears and the mouth. So natural language processing is the ability for AI to understand language, so we don't have to speak in a code. You can speak normal, and it can understand that, and then it could respond to you in a normal language as well. And then generative AI, that's the one that you're probably interacted with the most, and that is, it could actually create something new. So that would be like ChatGPT. If you use that chatbot, you can say, hey, create a poem about birds, and it will create something original based on all of the examples. So it might not sound completely original because it's based on other things, but that's what we do too, right? If I write a poem, it's going to be based on, poems that I've read before and understanding how those things work. All right, how are we on time? Pretty good? All right, so now for AI for OnLogic, where we focus on is industrial AI. So those are applications of artificial intelligence in industrial environments. And so companies are looking to implement this for a number of reasons here. To get faster, to improve quality, to improve employee safety. There could be sensors that are outfitted on forklifts that will trigger an alarm if there's about to be a collision. It can reduce downtime, so it can look at patterns in the way that equipment operates to say, oh, the last time this equipment did this, it failed 3 days later. So we should get in there and fix that now to prevent costly downtime. So there's all sorts of different things that it can help you do. And the point of this graph, you can Google and find a bunch of different graphs just like it. This one is particularly for using AI in manufacturing. And it's basically that we're at that tipping point right now where it's moving from promise to practice, that it's about to take off so people are really trying to understand how do we get the value from it so that we can not just implement a cool technology but benefit from it. So a couple of examples here of how this is. Now these are going to be a mix of examples of things our customers are doing, things that anybody could do, things that OnLogic does. But this one is a customer of ours called FlashEye. And they have a solution using our computer in which they are out at a mine. And so they have this cool technology where they can digitally create a 3D model of what this whole outdoor mining operation looks like, and then identify when something changes. So say there's this conveyor belt, really dirty, dusty, lots of rocks, and it can say, oh, in this 3D model, we're seeing over here this vibration that is abnormal. And I'm going to go back into the data. The last time we saw, the last 5 times we saw that vibration, the conveyor belt failed. And that could be horrible from a safety issue. Things could be flying off. It, of course, would cost them money in having that downtime. So again, it can predict these things that are about to happen so that it can trigger an action for humans to intervene. Another cool example is robots. I think everyone thinks robots when they think of artificial intelligence. And that's true. I mean, if you program a robot to always go and do a certain thing, that's just automation. If the robot can figure it out on its own, that's AI. And so Plus One Robotics is a cool organization in which they have robots that will unpack pallets in warehouses. And if the pallet comes in and it's standard, and you always get the same things and they're similar shaped, just get an automated robot to pick it. But their robots can deal with what's called a mixed pallet. So every time the things come in a little different and they're stacked like the game of Tetris, if you've ever played that, and a human can look at that and be like, I'm not going to pick this one first because the whole thing's going to fall down. But that's what they were able to teach their robots to understand, that with their computer vision cameras, their eyes, it can assess, here's what's on the pallet. Now because of that, I'm going to pick this one first, and then I'm going to remove that one. It's pretty neat. And it's not just indoors, it's out on the farm too. Like similarly, you can use it for crop harvesting to say, oh, is that strawberry actually ripe? Great, we're going to use the robot arm to pick that. Or you can outfit tractors that are going through the field to water or give certain fertilizing agents to your crops. Instead of just spraying it on the whole field, you can have a system on your tractor that will notify, oh, we're driving by this plant. This one actually needs more water based on how it looks, so let's dispense more. The next one, oh, this one's doing pretty good, so let's dispense less. So you're actually minimizing your environmental footprint too by optimizing things like chemical and water usage. This is one of my favorites, protecting birds and wind farms. So, I mean, I love all the wind, personal statement here, all the wind energy that's going out. But, what are the environmental impacts of that? So a couple of ways AI has been deployed in this stance is one, to look at typical migratory patterns for birds and do machine learning algorithms to say, hey, we should actually build the wind farm here and not here because of their migratory patterns. The other way to use it is, okay, a wind farm exists using a computer vision system to detect birds as they're coming and then triggering an action. That action might be some sort of deterrent, like a sound, or the action might be to slow down the blades to make an impact less likely. So all of those things are controlled by AI. And then this is my last one. This is a pretty typical manufacturing operations example, and that's object or defect detection. So this top one here is just a proof of concept that we did at OnLogic, where you can, this is computer vision in action. So you can see whether you're putting all the right accessories in the box with your computer. So instead of manually checking each package every time it goes out, you can lay things out and it'll assess, oh, this is what should be there and this is what I see. And then this one down here is looking at defects. This is a partner of ours, did this proof of concept for a beverage manufacturer. And I mean, these things happen high speed. So think about, beer manufacturing, the cans are flying down the line, and to be able to see, is there a dent on any of these cans that our machines are causing? And to be able to detect that through different colored labels, the reflective metal of the can, the condensation that's on there, so that you can then waste a heck of a lot less product if you can detect those defects sooner. So that is your crash course on industrial AI and some examples. I hope that was helpful. We're going to skip generative AI. This is ChatGPT. Everyone uses, well, a lot of people use that. And it's helpful in the business environment too, really from a productivity standpoint. But at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Emmanuel to talk the security implications of all this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Sara. Can you hear me? All right. Good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel. I'm OnLogic Director of Infrastructure and Security, and today I'm here to discuss about security governance for the critical infrastructure sectors. Way closer. All right. So let's start with what are the critical infrastructure sectors. So if you look at what we have defined by CISA, an organization in the States, it's what is critical in terms of infrastructure for a nation. Think about energy, think about water, think about healthcare. All those elements are part of the critical infrastructure that we cannot live without. Any cyber attack under those will have critical consequences. We want to protect them. Unfortunately, they're also cyber criminal #1 target for many reasons. The first one is they have gaps. They have gaps in their governance. They were never designed to be exposed. They were never designed to be threatened externally. They also gaps security controls, because when they were designed, and a lot of machinery in those industries, they were designed in the 80s, in the 70s, and cybersecurity at that point was not a priority. They also are focused on something called operational technology, and we'll see the difference between this and IT. Today, all those organizations, they're being asked to rush to AI, machine learning, because there are so much benefits that everybody wants to go in that realm. They want to be better, they want to be faster, they want to be more efficient. But without critical security, they are basically increasing their exposure. IT and OT. So it's something important to understand what's the difference. IT technology, information technology, is basically computers that you have at home. It's a printer. It's those things that we have in an office environment, very typical, very well maintained, very well known, evolving fast. You replace usually those equipment every 5 years. And when they do not work, it's not the end of the world. In operational technology, those are elements that have a way longer lifespan. Instead of 5 years, it's 15 to 20. Think about an X-ray machine. Think about the machinery in electric equipment. Those elements are designed to stay for a long time. The worst that could happen, well, they can harm people. If you think about a medical center, if they stop working or they've been compromised and remote access by, let's say, a foreign nation, they can kill people. So the impact is way higher. They also are usually way more under scrutiny from a regulatory perspective because we want to protect our people. The gap is solutions to protect them are not as well known, and they come with a lot of changes because as soon as you touch them, usually they lose their regulatory compliance, people are not trained to protect them, and that's why cybercriminal law is perfect storm of attack for them, as they can do a lot of damage with a little effort. Industry 4.0. So Um, Industry, like manufacturing, in 2025 are following that model, where basically they want everything to be connected. Why everything needs to be connected, then you can leverage AI or machine learning to be better. OT priority is to be available. If you think about, again, medical equipment, you don't want them to stop for an hour to be patched. You don't want them, an electric system to go down for half a day because it needs to do an upgrade. It needs to work all the time. And that's the big difference, again, between IT and OT is OT can never go down. So the changes are, typically when you do cybersecurity, we have what we call the CIA triangle. We want to protect information confidentiality. You don't want somebody else to know about your information. You want to protect its integrity. You don't want your bank account to go from something to nothing. And you want information to be available. You need to make sure that it works all the time. In traditional IT, the element that's the most critical and the most important is confidentiality. But as you can guess, in OT, it's availability. So you have to change all your controls to make sure that regardless of what you recommend and regardless of what you do, it needs to be available all the time. Also, like I mentioned, you have a lot of regulations about that infrastructure. You want to make sure, again, you protect your people. You have a lot of legislation, you have a lot of regulation to make sure that the most important thing is to protect our people. So you're coming with a gap of coverage between what you should do in the IT world and what you do on a day-to-day in the IT world and what you can actually do. Cost of incidents. This one is really about, I'm going to say money. The first element of how much cyber attacks cost is unknown, because many incidents are just not reported. Some organizations, they prefer to hide that they have to pay a ransom. Some organizations, they want to hide that something bad happened that could endanger people because of the liability. So a lot of the numbers are really underestimated. But we see that it's not going to get cheaper. And as you can guess right now with geopolitics, it's not going to get safer. And we have official nations that are at war, at cyber war, with the United States and Western countries in general. So that's not going to get better. Security at the edge. So Sara did a great presentation of making sure that now you understand the edge. And the edge comes with even more changes because we want that reactiveness, because we want to make sure that it works all the time, because we want to make sure that we also manage the physical element. When you think about a data center, you can imagine that those buildings are well maintained, well guarded. Well, if it's in any car, it's not as protected. So you come with a lot of new changes at the edge on elements that are becoming more and more critical in our day-to-day life. So when you combine all those, you're getting a lot of organization under pressure. Pressure for the IT-OT convergence, how can they work together in a safe way? Pressure from regulatory. We want to make sure that all organizations are aligned and compliant with regulations. We want to make sure that we support Industry 4.0, making sure everything is available all the time. We want to make sure that we support AI, edge computing, to have the edge of the industry, make sure that we can provide an infrastructure that is safe to use, and the governance. We want to make sure that we use best practices. We want to make sure that we're learning from each other. We want to make sure that if our customers or if our partners are asking, hey, how are you doing it? We can share about it. We can teach them to all get better. For all those reasons, that's why we launched at OnLogic last month our consulting solution. Not only we wanted to provide great hardware at the edge, not only we wanted to help our customers to leverage AI in those conditions, but also we wanted them to make it securely. Because when we see great organization rushing to something without understanding the risk, the new risk, that's something that we're not comfortable. And we were telling them, hey, do you need help? Because we can help you. We can ensure your business continuity. We can make sure that your operation will be maintained. We make sure that your people are safe. So that's why we launch our consulting services. The first phase is usually an assessment phase. We want to understand our customer risk. a protect phase when we want to make sure that we help them protect themselves better, and a monitoring phase. We want to make sure that when it's safe today, it will save tomorrow. Because as you can guess, tomorrow will be more difficult. Cybersecurity, what a good edge cybersecurity looks like. So usually you have 4 components. The first one is what is called enterprise security. You want to make sure that you know what's happening. You want to make sure that you go in the details of any threat. You want to make sure that you understand any of your risk, and you make sure that you have a plan. Network security, everything is connected on the network. You need to make sure you know what's happening. You don't want a rogue element to be on the same network as what is critical for you. Physical security, you want to know that somebody has physical access, because a lot of security controls, if you have physical access, mean nothing. So you want to make sure that you control that as well. And zero trust. Zero trust is a principle of security where instead of considering that I define a perimeter and anything within that perimeter is safe, no. Even within that perimeter, I should not believe that it is safe. I still want to make sure that I manage it, I secure it properly, like it will be externally. Because now, those boundaries, they do not mean nothing when we have AI, when we have edge computing. So we want to have that zero trust experience. From an architecture and an infrastructure perspective, that's what we're helping our customer with. We want to make sure that they understand how they can identify the risk on their infrastructure and how to migrate to zero trust infrastructure, where they have all the controls to make sure that any element, any piece of data will be properly managed, will be properly secured against any kind of threat. Business continuity plan. So it's great to know, it's better to be prepared. Business continuity plan is something that we develop to help organizations plan for the worst. And in that case, how do they maintain their operation? How do they are still in business? How do you still people safe? So the idea is, well, hope for the best, be prepared for the worst. And in that case, how do you work? How do you operate? If you have, let's say, manufacturing one side, well, if you lose that side, what happens? Well, maybe we should have a second one. If you lose that equipment, or if anything happened to that database, how do you still operate? If you have an issue with an employee, how do you it's about making sure that regardless of the event, your operation, your business will continue to operate. Disaster recovery. Well, unfortunately, even if you had a great plan to prevent incident from happening, it happened. How do you come back? How fast do you come back? Because we want to make sure that not only you know how to come back fully, without loss, without impact, but also how fast. If you tell your organization you have a great disaster recovery plan and you can guarantee to be back in business in 6 months, might not be acceptable. Awareness and training. So there's a saying in security that usually humans are usually the weakest link. It's true. And we all do mistakes. Even the best professionals make mistakes. We need to always make sure that people are trained. People understand the risk. People understand the why. It's not about security telling people, hey, you're terrible at what you're doing, and that's it. No, you did wrong. We want you to understand the why. We want you to do better. We want you also to share your experience with the others. When you talk about security, and I'm pretty sure all of you receive lovely emails and texts from random people asking you for something, a lot of people, what they do is they hide it. What we do at OnLogic when we receive those lovely communications, we share them and we say, hey, this is what I received. Be aware, be ready. It's critical to share because security is a group thing. One cannot be secure if the other is not. So what we recommend in our communication is there's no shame. There's no peanut pointing. When it happens, share those stories to help the other get better. And it's true for individuals, but even more true for organizations. So all those that are hiding their secret incidents, they're doing wrong. They should learn from it to get better. So at the end, the recommendation we're making to our organization in terms of cybersecurity, especially in the critical sector that are so important for this nation, is you need to tailor your governance. One solution will not be the right one for another one. And we see a lot of our competitors trying to force basically one solution again and again, copy-paste it multiple times. No, the right solution is something that you tailor, something that you define, something that you suit to your audience. Understand the specificities of your sector. Healthcare is different from manufacturing. Manufacturing is different from transportation. Again, do not try to apply the same remedy to all of them. And again, minimize the likelihood of events. Usually a security team effort is all about trying to mitigate either or both of the likelihood of an incident or the impact. But it's going to happen, let's be clear. Nobody is fully protected, and they say that we are never really fully secured. So when it happens, be ready. And that's how we do security at OnLogic.
All right, so I think this is our Q&A portion. So, any thoughts? Who wants to kick it off? Any thoughts, comments, or questions? Ooh, there's lots.
Hi. So I'm concerned that the government has not been doing enough as far as governance of technology, and I don't have a lot of hope it's going to be getting better. What about the industry working together, because it jeopardizes industry as well. So is there any hope you can give us on that front?
Oh. There's got to be hope, right? There's got to be. It's an excellent question, and it's a spot-on concern. I think that policy and governance have to evolve. And unfortunately, like I think everything else that we've seen, it's going to be behind the technology rate of advancement. I mean, we saw the same thing with the internet, right? That it's going to take some time for our policies to catch up. So I would assume that we would have that same situation where the policy and the governance is going to lag a little bit. However, it's imperative that it happens. And so it's imperative that it happens at the government level. And then the industry side, there are consortiums that are working on this. There are oversight and governance policies. All the consultants are talking about, as you're implementing AI, don't forget to be responsible about it too. So I would say the hope is the awareness is there. And we're at that point where action is now critical. And that I think everyone that is implementing and using this technology has to take that on and have skin in the game in that to make sure that we're using it for good.
Can you give us some specific, maybe even fun examples of when systems are compromised, how they get compromised in a way that might help us understand how to avoid it?
So we've seen a lot of ranges of events, and some of them are very obvious and some of them are very advanced. The obvious one is you cannot imagine how many, for example, medical center did walkthrough where basically passwords are written on the screen. Because, no offense to them, but doctors don't want to waste time finding a password, so it was easier to basically write it down on the screen. I've seen organization in basically transportation that are basically the keys. I mean, when I say keys, like the software keys on the desk on a USB stick, because again, it was convenient. There's a lot of conflict between convenience and security, and usually good security posture comes with becoming not an inconvenience for people to where they're going to use it. And some attacks are very complex when you need a lot of insiders and technology to get through a system to either steal information or take remote control. So it really varies. But what is crazy still in 2025 is to see that a lot of large organization with a lot of resources still relies on all those very easy fix and are not doing much about it. So before you go to the advanced vector of attacks that requires a lot of skills, our recommendation is take the easy win, the low level of effort, high value, and then we're going to talk about the others.
I think to add from a humorous standpoint, I think from my personal experience, it was learning to lock my phone at home because one time I didn't, and I went back and my child had changed my default language to Spanish. And then I couldn't actually read the menus to set it back to English.
we had cases of people with access to a lot of information being compromised because their kids install application on their cell phone. So
Yeah.
it goes, I mean, the range of what can happen is very large.
Okay, we have a question from Zoom.
Is it on? Yeah. How do you vet your supply chain to prevent hardware backdoors or compromised firmware in AI edge devices?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's a great question.
Emmanuel.
So we do risk assessment based on our suppliers. It could be software, it could be hardware. We apply a zero trust principle, so even if they like us and we like them, we don't trust each other, and we're going to still do risk analysis, identification of software. There's something, for example, called software bill of material. So a bill of material is the parts that you have in a computer, for example. We do the same for software. Hey, you're seeing another application, what's under the hood? Because I know that some element might be unsecured. I like to fix them or push back if you're not fixing them.
Thank you so much. Great talk. Lots of wonderful information. I just had a question. So machine learning, computer vision, and natural language processing has existed for many decades. Perhaps you can explain for the audience why generative AI and the technological breakthroughs that underpin it have experienced such an explosive capability growth in the last few years. We've seen it obviously pass the Turing test. You see programs like AlphaFold solving almost all human protein folding patterns. It is a substantial change, and I would just be interested, and I'm sure many people here would be as well, to hear your perspective on that. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you for that. So this is going to be my personal speculation here, right? And so it has been around for a long time. In fact, you know, working with partners, so like we've been doing AI and machine learning for 15 plus years, and it's like, really? Like it hasn't been around? And it has, right? But a lot of that, again, my perspective has been, it's been behind the scenes, it's been very technical, and it's been not part of our practical day-to-day. So for me, I think the answer is the humanness of it. With ChatGPT specifically, when they released, and everybody immediately was able to access this and try it out and play with it themselves and see how it could be useful for themselves, that's when I think the awareness went off. And when you have, you know, it's the tipping point, right? Once you have that level of that vast amount of people that are now on that change curve to utilizing and accepting these things, I think not only does our awareness increase, but the pace of iteration on it increases because there's just more of a pull, more of a draw to use this, and more folks working on it. So that's my perspective.
Another Zoom question.
What percentage of your business is with government agencies and the private sector?
Great question. So we don't disclose particular percentages from our segmentation standpoint. But what I can say is that the vast majority of our business is more in the manufacturing, warehouse, and logistics sectors. But like I shared earlier, we do have a ton of different industries, and defense is part of it as well. And so there's, you know, a vast array of ways that many different companies can use industrial computers.
I have a question, and it's got to do with available electric power. In the next 50 years, how will this state, which is closed its Vermont Yankee, while Microsoft has gone and reactivated 3 Mile Island, going to be able to support the electrical power needed for AI to advance in this state?
So I wish I had an answer. I don't. But I do agree that it is important to find that answer, and that is an element that is absolutely paramount for both the government and private sector to investigate. And we have that's part of that governance ownership that we have. If we're using this, how are we going to sustainably use it? I'm going to go a little bit beyond my comfort zone here, so you rein me in, Emmanuel, but like there are efforts. I would even say if you've heard of the effort going around in Vermont with gallium arsenide, GaN technology, VGaN, Vermont gallium arsenide. Yeah, okay, great. So that's, again, it's ways, those are lower power solutions to run this high power compute. So it is, I think, driving more technology advancement to say, how can we run these, data hungry applications more efficiently so that we don't need as much power to do them? But that's one tiny piece of the pie. I think there's a lot of work that has to happen there.
Just a reminder that was when the fellow spoke to us about the cooperation between Global Foundries and UVM?
Yes, and OnLogic's part of that as well.
Cool.
Yep.
Good.
Thank you. Yes, this is one for Emmanuel. You were discussing how passwords and the uses of that were a real vulnerability because people just leave them on the screen and lie them around. To what extent does biometric security have vulnerabilities as a an answer to that issue?
So one of the key elements of security is authentication. So authentication is proving who you are. Let's be clear, password, even complex as they can be, are not considered safe. Text messages, when you receive a code, are not considered safe. There are many ways. Biometric is one of them. Biometrics is usually not something promoted because it's so protected from a HIPAA perspective, from many regulations about preserving that very uniqueness of the individual that we don't want to be shared externally. So a lot of security control usually do not promote biometrics as much as potentially could. But there are other alternatives. There are a lot of applications. There's a lot of ways to properly authenticate people in a safer way to make sure that we can properly know who are individual when they access an application.
Hi, thank you for your talk. Do you foresee a day when AI can be used in real time to fact check? So for example, when someone's on television and they say, vaccinations cause autism, it can have a screen that says, that's a lie, and explain what the truth is.
Yeah.
Do you ever foresee a day when that might happen?
I love that. I mean, what I've seen thus far with artificial intelligence, I think that's absolutely possible. And I think that's a fantastic idea. Oh, we have more. We have one more here.
So on the scarier side of it, can it be used in the opposite way?
Well, exactly. That's the challenge, right? It all goes back to the governance and the policy and how we are making sure that we're using this stuff for good. And I mean, like the internet, there's a lot of amazing ways that's being used for good. There's a lot of misinformation out there too. So I think it is a challenge in order to parse those two things out. But how might we use AI to help us parse those things out as well? Yeah, I think that's an evolving challenge. But again, it's coming up with ideas and use cases like that. How do you get that out there more?
Question about the history of OnLogic, who the principals are, and why you are located in Burlington, Vermont, or
do you want this
suburb
one?
of Burlington.
I'll start. Chime in if I'm missing anything. So thank you for that question. So our co-founders are Lisa and Roland Grunewald, who are residents here in South Burlington. So Lisa grew up in Barrie, and Roland grew up in the Netherlands. And so when they met professionally, they were each in different roles, and they had the idea to start the organization. And they had started it. They had come back to the States, I believe, around the time that Lisa's father was ill and before he passed. So that's why they had come back to Vermont. And while they were here, it was like, hey, we can do this business that we're coming up with that initially started as just selling industrial components and wasn't developing, complete computers. And they started that here as an online e-commerce business. And I think it was actually in Waterbury, but they moved to South Burlington as they were expanding and looking for a greater talent pool. And that was the origin piece.
I believe toward the end of your presentation, you said it's a good idea to share what happened with other people. And I'm thinking back to 2 or 3 years ago when the medical center was hit and hit very badly. And at that time, they would not say anything about, I guess it was a ransomware thing.
I think it was.
I don't know. But I'm just wondering, I never found out what happened. And does that mean that I don't need to, or you want to share it with other organizations that are similar?
So it's an excellent. I'm trying not to mention that example because 3 months of lack of medical records electronically available, and I think the estimate cost for UVA Medical Center is around $61 million, and I think we're all paying for some of that. So they did disclose what happened. The time it takes to do what is called a postmortem analysis, so basically when you need to understand really in depth what happened, the origin, usually comes after the resolution. So during the whole incident, usually you don't disclose anything because you don't have the time. Then you do forensic analysis, which is basically try to go back in time and identify what happened. It was disclosed what happened, and it was one click on a personal email connected by VPN to the organization, and everything went down. It is how simple and how real security is. When people are saying that, well, we're protected, we're fine, one click. And that's why the training, at the end of the day, because you can have all the security control in the world, without training, without people knowing what to do, you will still have that one click that brings everything down.
What's your follow-up question?
An employee. But it could have been a contractor.
Yeah, but not malintended. It's a mistake.
No, it's one of those thousands of emails that we all receive, and they're getting more and more evolved and more complex. So it's very difficult to know the difference between fake and real, and saying that hey, we have, and right now there was a campaign about toll roads payments. That's great.
So many text
and
messages.
you see those messages being more and more real. And it's very difficult for people to tell the difference, and that's why having a training campaign that looks exactly right and using the same techniques of manipulation of emotion of people, because usually that's what triggers people to click rather than think, is key.
Wow. Sarah, maybe this guy knows you.
Oh boy.
DeepSeek and other Chinese labs are advancing quickly, not just in LLMs, but also in scientific research models, code generation, and multilingual AI. In your opinion, is the United States at real risk of falling behind in this important area? Is OnLogic preparing for this eventuality?
Wow, that's a loaded question. So the LLMs that they were talking about is large language models. So that's a lot of what powers things like ChatGPT. So, I mean, yes, I think we are at risk. And I think, like anything else, this is going to be a global race to have this technology and create this technology. And that, of course, will often dictate who has access to it. So, yeah, that's from the level of development of those types of things, OnLogic isn't that deep in that area. Like we're not creating these models. We're not, that's of the likes of some other larger technology players in the country. So again, we are paying attention to it and can be affected by it, but it's not something that OnLogic is driving.
One last question. Oh, his question was answered. All right. Hey, you two, thank you so, so much.
Yes. Thank you all so much for your engagement and wonderful questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you.